Gonna...
So my name is Gabrielle Fuqua. I'm the marketing director at Active Pipe. And today Kylie Davis is joining me, and she came over. How long has it been now? About a month? I don't even know.
It feels like 100 years ago, but it was at the beginning of June.
Yeah.
We've jammed a lot in, right?
We have, and we're all on COVID time, so things feel strange. But Kylie joined us with the Home Prezzo acquisition and with real content. And it's really exciting because ActivePipe has long been an email marketing solution where you can bring in your own content, you can host your own blogs, where property feed integration. But one thing that we kept hearing was that people did not have the time or the bandwidth to create content. And Kylie, and I'm a writer, I like to call myself a writer, but Kylie has just the most amazing ability to curate the best content for real estate. And that's coming from me, who I'm pretty snobby about my real estate content. So thank you for joining ActivePipe. It's been awesome having you there and having such a great writer. So what Kylie has come to do today is tell us a little bit about content marketing. And then we have a little surprise announcement for you at the end of the webinar. So I hope everybody sticks around to hear it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Gabby. And look, it is wonderful to be part of ActivePipe. A little bit about me. I have a 25-year history in media. I did my cadetship and trained to be a journalist at some of Australia's biggest media companies. And my last gig in media was as head of real estate editorial at News Corp, looking at all of their publications across the country. And in Australia, News had about 120 newspapers that had a real estate section in some way, shape or form. So it was my job to deliver the editorial strategy across all of those publications.
Wow.
And also make it digital. So working with realestate.com, which is the big portal here in Australia. And after that gig, I went over to CoreLogic and got involved really heavily in delivering in data. So CoreLogic, when I was at News Corp, we introduced CoreLogic data into News to start to cover how the market was performing in local neighbourhoods. And CoreLogic asked me to come over and join them because they had an awful lot of data, but they didn't know how to tell the stories around that. So I was at CoreLogic for about 4 years. And during that time, I met a really interesting young guy called Nathan Krasansky, who had this dream to turn data into fabulous video content. And so he and I started collaborating. He set up Home Prezzo, and CoreLogic sort of nurtured the Home Prezzo in Australia in its initial iteration. And that was where I met Ash for the first time as well. So I had been stalking Ash because I had heard about this really cool startup called ActivePipe. He kept avoiding me while I was in Australia. So we actually met in a cafe in San Francisco at the one of the Inman conferences. So that's kind of how we're all tied together, and we kept in touch, and ActivePipe purchased Home Prezzo and the real content stream that we had built out as part of that. So I'm really passionate about telling great stories and about the importance of telling great stories in building relationships. So let's kick off with this demo about how to use content.
And just a little background, Ash is the CEO of ActivePipe, in case you're not looking at our website and who everyone is.
I thought everybody knew this.
Everybody knows Ash. You probably had a beer with him somewhere.
Yeah. So hang on, I'll just get hang on. It is 3 in the morning at my time, so forgive me if I have the occasional little technical user error. So let's talk about how to win more clients with content and what content can do for you. Come on. I've got a couple of screens open. So let's start with some data because I have a bit of a data background. I really like to look at what we're dealing with so that we've got context for the problem. So there's about 5 million properties sold across the US every year, which is about 4% of the property market, according to the data that I could find. And if we look at how many contacts an agent typically has, whether that's in your phone or in your CRM. But most agents have around about 400 contacts each that they've got access to. And if we look at that, that means that there's probably 16 contacts inside your CRM or inside your circle of influence that you know right now who are going to transact over the next year or so. But the trick is finding which ones they are and how often they are. And there's been a lot of new data come out recently that looks at how we use our mobile phones. Now, as real estate agents and realtors, we love using our phones because we love talking to people, but preferences around how we communicate are really changing quite dramatically. And only about 26% of Americans actually want to use their phone to take a call. And this is really increasingly important in younger millennial generations and beyond. And millennials are in their 30s now. So, but they don't really necessarily want to talk to you. They just want you to send them an email or send them a message. And in fact, email is one of the most preferred ways for people to have businesses communicate with them, or when you're in a business frame of mind, having a communication set.
Kylie, do you find that millennials like to have more information up front before they speak to someone? Have you noticed that as a trend?
Absolutely. So I think also we want to, we're in a generation, well, we're in a whole universe now where people expect to be able to do their own research in their own time. And they're looking for people who they can trust to guide them in that research, but they don't want to act until they're ready to act. And we feel like nowadays, because, you know, there's so much information available to us online, that we can do all the information gathering ourselves, and then we'll reach out when we're ready. And I'll talk about a little bit how that sort of flows through the funnel. So what we see in real estate is that there's this issue of leaky leads. Now, Ash calls it lead leakage, which I really have a problem with the words, but let's just go with leaky leads. And what we see in the data is that about a 45% of leads are lost every year in real estate. So you've got contacts in your database or in your circle of influence who are probably going to transact, but they, at the key time, they forget to tell you, or you haven't come at top of their mind with them. And this is a really big problem in the industry because there's about $120 million spent by agents every year just on leads alone. And if we look at that, 45% of leads, the 16 leads a year that you're missing out on and not transacting with. And I've only used about a 3% commission in calculating this, but it's probably around about $100,000 to you if you're just handling one side of the transaction.
Wow.
So I'm conscious that US and Australian commissions work slightly different. We have very low commissions. You guys have higher commissions, and you can clip it on both sides. But so I just calculated that conservatively at around about 100K if you're missing 16 leads. And
emotionally, I know a lot of my agent friends, when they miss a deal that's in their sphere, it's hard, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's 100,000 you'd rather have in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
So how does email marketing work? Now, this is a pretty basic funnel, but what I've tried to do is make the language relevant to you. Now, excuse me, I've just got a tickling nose. So at the top of the funnel, we have people who have vaguely heard about you. So they might have, they might know you from down the street. They might have seen some of your signage or seen some of your advertising. They've heard about you. You know, you're not really in their consciousness for any reason. And then the next level down is that they've heard of you, but they have no reason to care about who you are right now. So you might just be the nice lady that drops in for coffee, but they're not in the market, they're not transacting. So there's no reason for them to actually need you in their lives right now. As we start to move down, we see that people might care, and then they become interested in what you can do for them. And then once you start to get into a transaction space, they're looking for you to prove your value, or if you are doing business with them, then they're hopefully in love with you and telling all their friends. And the way this breaks down is we have this awareness stage at the top, moving into an interest phase, and then moving into the transaction phase. So this is what a typical funnel looks like. Now, there might be more categories sort of in different sections of it, but the flow is kind of, the majority of people in your universe will be up in this top area, and there'll be a small proportion of people who you're dealing with who are in love and telling all your friends. But this is what happens in real estate, and this is what we kind of do wrong. We think that anyone who has vaguely heard about us should jump straight to, I want to sell your house. And what we see in a lot of the marketing and advertising that agents do is that they pretty much take anyone who's up here and try and jam them straight into this mindset immediately. Now, I don't know about you guys. I'm happily married for quite a long time, but I hear there's this thing called Tinder out there. And certainly we have all had experiences online with people who kind of are weirdo stalkers. So when we do this, when we engage in this behavior, this is what we're being. Like, this is the effective, we are being the weirdo stalker guy on Tinder who sees your picture on LinkedIn and suddenly wants to hook up with you. And that it's not cool. We want to stop being that, okay?
That's
so
hilarious.
I'm going to take that off because it's 3 a.m. in the morning. It's too early for that stuff. So here's what we want to achieve with email marketing. We want to create a virtual loop. So I don't know if you can visualize that funnel. If you were looking down on it and there were kind of two funnels sitting next to each other, we've sort of got this sort of round loop happening. We want to understand the people. We want to have a combination of new clients and past clients who we're talking to constantly in a way that they are comfortable with. We want to nurture those relationships that we've got with people. We want to recognize the signals that they are giving us, which are subtle signals a lot of the time, not just, hey, I want you to sell my house, but we want to recognize their signals and we want to tune into them. We want to gain insights from how they're engaging with us, both passively and actively. We want to be able to understand that engagement. So we want to know when they're opening emails, we want to know when they're clicking or when they're starting to behave online and giving us signals that they're thinking about maybe possibly selling their home or buying a home. We want to capture their details if they're new because we want them in our database and we want to get their email. And we're really looking to drive them to our website or engage with them on social email. So we're trying to capture their intent, understand their engagement, and we want to start, staying in contact with them on a regular but permission basis, so that we're allowed to, so that we can have a conversation with them and we're ready to act when they tell us that they're ready. So great content amplifies email campaigns and it helps establish your reputation in your market. We know this from a lot of the research. Content is great at establishing credibility and building trust. So by, just a low touch, warm, constant connection, you're able to demonstrate your usefulness and helpfulness and how much expertise you have in the market. When we see people clicking on parts of their email, that's actually revealing intent. And that the more that they click, the more insights we're being given that helps us understand that they're more likely to convert into a sale or into a transaction for you.
So does that mean, like, if you have a blog about first time buying, what you need to know, a checklist or something, and someone clicks on that, then that reveals intent?
Yeah, so you might be sending an email campaign out, for example, to clients in your database or past clients in your database that you haven't spoken to or haven't had a chance to speak to for a while. And if you send an article, something like 5 reasons why it's great to sell why it's a good reason, why the market's good to sell right now, and people that you haven't been in contact with for a couple of years are clicking on that, then they're signaling to you that, oh, hang on, that's something they're thinking about. So you can select the content to flush out people's intentions. So it nurtures leads and it keeps you connected and it builds your authority and reputation because you're starting to share information that is helpful and useful to people. So you're building up your reputation as being someone who is helpful and useful, not just someone who's focused on the transaction. And so when we have a higher level of trust with people, we're more likely to really, just do business with them, and we want to do business with them, and it's a more enjoyable experience. You don't have to sell so hard to them. And we see that content is 6 times more effective than traditional marketing. So that's from some insights from the Content Marketing Institute, who are constantly looking at the role of content in marketing. So let's look at some tips at how to do content marketing and how to use content to build your business. Now, my first tip is that you stand out from the crowd and not just do the same old stuff that everyone else is doing. So we really want to, we really want to be average, be relevant, because why on earth would you aspire to be average? And what we see is that a lot of realtors do the same stuff as every other realtor in their market when they're marketing themselves. So how do you stand out if you're doing the same stuff that everyone else is doing in the same way? Here in Australia, I live in a market that is very heavily transacted. I get letterbox flyers inside my mailbox. Every week I will get 3 or 4 of them. The only thing different is the colour of the team on them. So there's no way for me to really differentiate between any of those agents. This is how I want you guys to stand apart from your competitors. Focus on the relationship, provide really useful content, so content that's helpful, and thinking about what the mindset of the people that you're sending your email out to might be. Thinking about different content for each audience. So absolutely, when you're kicking off, maybe just a monthly or a quarterly general email, but then having different emails for people who are sellers in your database or people who are buyers in your database, and even then starting to break it down a little bit more to people who might be first home buyers or upsizers or downsizers, really showing some awareness of the different journeys that you're on. Remember that click content.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
Yeah, go for it. I'm worried my accent might be kind of making people think, oh my God, who is this girl? So if there's any, let me know.
I don't think so. I think all Americans love Australian accents, pretty much universal. So when you were talking about earlier how people had access to all the content or all the information, all the details, all the information online, being able to deliver that content, where can you explain a little bit about the difference of delivering something to their inbox versus, say, having it on your website?
So I think when you deliver something inside people's email, inside their inbox, you're really helping. Well, an inbox is a trusted place. So if I give you my email address, it says I want to hear from you. Where if I, and so if they're seeing it on your website, or if they're looking up stuff on the web and they're landing on your website, that's fantastic. But if you're then also starting to serve up information which is in their mindset and they're clicking on it, you're getting a second more a heavier intent signal. I think that's probably the best way to say it. Brittany has asked too if we're going to go over how to use ActivePipe. So we're going to talk a little bit at the end, Brittany, about how to use ActivePipe with content. So I hope that answers that question. We also, as agents, have a lot of stock and that is great content. So properties that we're selling at the moment, or properties that we know that are on the market that might make great properties. And properties are really great at illustrating what's happening in the market. What we see though is agents relying a little bit too heavily on just saying, well, I have properties for sale, or these are the properties that I'm selling right now, or this is what's available. And if we only do that, then we're only talking in that transaction space. So we're not sort of talking about the relationship. We're not saying we're interested in helping you find a home. We're not telling our clients that we're that we really want to be their guide or their coach through this stressful thing called, home ownership. And we all know that, buying and selling a home is a really, it can be a long, complicated, drawn out transaction. People don't do it very often. They want someone to guide them through the complexity of it, which is why real estate agents are so important. But if you only focus on the property transaction or the properties themselves, then you are going into that transaction mode and you're being that weird stalker guy. So we decided we didn't want to be him.
Right. I mean, you certainly want to build relationships. I think what I heard you saying was that when you already have someone's email, that relationship has already started. So
Absolutely.
By delivering the content that is something that they may look up online, then you're doing the work for them and building trust and building your expertise and building the relationship. That
Absolutely.
gives them an expectation of, if they transact with you, how that might look.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And how you're going to be a step ahead of them in all of the things that they need to know, so you've got their back. And I think that segues beautifully into tip number 2, which is around providing really valuable information, because what we want to do is inspire people's curiosity. So we want them to be curious about what's happening in their local market. We want them to be, to be interested in what that amazing property up the road sold for them about. And we want them to put themselves into a mindset where they're thinking, we could do that. We could upgrade right now, or maybe it's time for us to buy that condo and stop having to do all this, mowing the lawn every weekend. So we need what we want in our emails is to share information that they need to know, and that gets them really curious about what would happen if we decided to buy or sell something, now. What would happen if we started to transact now? Because it is all about that, revealing intent through the clicks. So the content needs to be really interesting and valuable. And the next tip, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But when we're thinking about, well, what would be valuable, we really need to be putting ourselves in the shoes of our audience. So taking ourselves away from ourselves and thinking, well, what would they want to know if they're going through this journey of thinking about selling right now, or thinking about buying something new right now, or what are all of the different questions that they're going to have around that space. And if we can fulfill on that promise, especially if, we're talking about 5 reasons to sell right now, and then we provide content in the email that gives them actually 5 really great reasons to sell right now, then we're delivering on the promise in the email, which is, when I opened the email, you told me I was going to get X, Y, Z information. I opened up the email. That was really helpful. I found that really useful. So now I've got another reason to trust you as my agent. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, yes. And so you're not just revealing intent, you're almost nurturing intent, meaning they may, have a problem and not really think of what you're offering as a solution, but you're offering information that may lead them down that path.
Yeah, there's an element in this of being quite benevolent and helpful. Being really helpful and not about your own self-interest in this, but being empathetic. It's about demonstrating your empathy towards what people are going through when they're buying and selling, and sharing your knowledge and putting yourself out there as a coach. So this is like our 3rd tip, which is that when you're doing these emails, I really recommend, and when you're looking to build these relationships, that you make the emails about your audience and about them and their needs, not about you. So in real estate, we have typically seen all of these new marketing options as just ways to amplify the old advertising that we've always done for ourselves. So it's all, it's about me, and it's about how amazing I am, and like I could be an amazing realtor for you, and it's all about really sell. But what we want to do in our emails to make sure that they do get opened, and that they do get read, and that they do get subscribed to, and that we do start to see people reading them and clicking into them more, is they really need to be audience focused. So constant self-promotion gets you unsubscribed. So think about the emails that are hitting your inbox, that you've signed up to, that you unsubscribe from because they're just too self-interested or too focused on the transaction. If you're wanting to have a relationship with people over years, if you're selling furniture, or if you're selling fashion, absolutely, they're higher turnover items. You're going to buy them more frequently. So it being more focused on selling is probably okay, although all of us get tired of that if it's constantly in our inbox. But as a real estate agent, you are looking to have relationships with people that exist for years, because people own their properties for years before they're going to transact again. So you don't want to go down that constant self-promotion path, remembering our freaky stalker guy, because that's basically just saying, hey, baby, yeah. You want to go now? You want to go now? You want to go now? That's not what we're looking for.
I agree. I mean, people use real estate agents they trust and who they feel have a friendship and who has their best interest in mind. So starting that with your marketing materials absolutely makes sense.
Mm. And it totally does, because you know your property is usually the biggest asset that you own, and it's the biggest financial asset that you own, and it's also the biggest emotional asset that you own. So you know, unless you own 100 properties and you get quite transactional about them, and we all love clients who are like that, but for most mum and dad or mum and pop out there, when you sell their home, or when they're buying their new home, they're in a highly vulnerable state. And most people resist selling, you know, like a lot of the reasons that we sort of, oh, we have to do this, it's because it is such a big emotional issue, plus a really big issue with so much homework attached to it and so much, you know, adulting attached to it. That you just like, you know, you want to become an adult, you go and transact a property, and suddenly you find yourself sitting in bed with your spouse talking about all sorts of shit you never thought you were going to talk about.
I can't wait to see all the emails from the real estate agents that are like tired of adulting.
Yeah. So let's look at how we do that. So they're in a highly vulnerable state. They're thinking about a new lifestyle, or they're thinking about giving up their own life, their old lifestyle, and moving into something new. All of these things make us kind of quite emotionally vulnerable, and they really want someone who's got their back. They want someone who's going to make this easy, make it, you know, as little stress as possible. So how do we build trust? Well, we need to show people that we've got their back. We don't need to tell them. Corporate boasts around, you know, we're the best at this, or, you know, we're completely professional, they're quite meaningless. You know, you need to walk the talk, not just talk it. We want you to provide evidence of what you're great at, and reading the room is what we're kind of trying to do here in an email sense. You're trying to read the room of what's going to resonate. A great way to think about the content that you should be putting into your emails is to think about the questions that you get asked all the time as an agent. So those questions are great sources of inspiration. So in terms of when people ask you a question, they're telling you what's bothering them. And so those questions can often become the topics of great blogs or great articles or great information that you can include in your email. So right now, for instance, I would be putting stuff in like, is now a good time to sell? You know, with COVID, is it safe to sell? Is it a good time to sell? What do I need to do to buy or sell? Or, you know, name the elephant in the room, and then look at ways that you can create information around that. So see those problems.
Sorry, it's really about being a good listener. So, yeah. In life, always.
Always, yep, always. And use the content of your email to provide answers to those questions that you're hearing. So if you're hearing a question my rule is that if I hear a question more than once, then that's pretty much an indication, you know, once is interesting, twice is interesting, 3 times is a trend. So if you're starting to hear a question from people more than 3 times, that would be a really great indicator that people are interested in that information, and that probably there's a broader audience out that are looking for that question to be answered. And so using that as maybe the inspiration for an email can be a really great way to be seen to be on trend, as well as sharing information that's really valuable. Excuse me, it is 3 a.m. So now with ActivePipe, our new automations are delivering leads and helping you stop lead leaks by identifying high value prospects that are ready to sell now, helping you unlock engagement opportunities hidden in your database, nurturing your clients and keeping you front of mind, and putting leads straight into your inbox. And so we saw before, that using content to do that is much more effective than that Tinder stalker guy.
Yeah, no Tinder stalker guys, please.
No, banned. Sorry, I'm looking off to the side because that's where my second screen is, so I hope I don't look shifty. Now, the steps to email success are just cleaning up your data, sorry, I've got my Australian voice on. And that can be as simple as, who have I got an email address for? Who do I just have the mobile phone for? Anyone that you've only got a mobile phone for, call them and ask them, could you put them onto your mailing list to start to receive useful information about how the market's performing and to answer some of their real estate questions.
And
from there you can
really quickly, I'm sorry to interrupt. I keep interrupting. One of the things when I worked with a lot of real estate agents, I noticed, you know, best intentions. I'm putting aside 4 hours this weekend. I'm going to get my database clean finally. But it's kind of like working out. If you start by running a marathon, then you're like, I'm done, never doing that again. But if you do a plank for 30 seconds every single day for a week, that feels very attainable, doable. So, you know, you and I have talked about this before. I know Amy O'Donnell on this call and Trudy have heard this from me before, but I like to talk about the real estate workout, which is 5 contacts every day. As you're making your calls, which you all do, clean up just those 5, but do that every day. And you can easily get to 100 contacts in a month. And with the 400 average contacts in someone's database, in 4 months, you have a clean database. And databases are like our friendships. They're not supposed to be 100% clean or always have all the information. I don't meet Kylie and say, hey, Kylie, what's your birthday? What's your anniversary? Give me all your personal information. You know, you build a relationship and then you get more and more information. I'll get those details from you later. But I just wanted to kind of mention that because I know in working with real estate agents, they're busy, they're showing houses, they're writing contracts, they don't have a lot of admin time. So just thinking about it as that 30-second plank and that quick 5-minute, 5 contacts a day. So sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's right. I think that's a great analogy. Like you use the marathon one, Gab. I use the that a database is a bit like housework and sex. Like it's never finished. Like it's never done. You have to keep doing it to get the benefit of it. Right? Do you hear me? So so as soon as you've done it, you have to start again. So you're better off to break it into just small tasks that you can do little bits of, and then just keep going. Obviously, that's a housework analogy. You go to town. The other one. The other one, determine your campaign frequency. So how often are you going to be sending information? How often are you going to be sending out your emails? And is that based on your needs or is it based on your audience needs? Because we want you to think like your audience, and really using content to reveal intent, so that the more clicks that you can get on that content, the more insights you're getting into who is ready to act and the space that they're ready to act in. So I think I'm going to hand over to you at this point, Gab, to do the demo and to do our hidden reveal.
Oh, thank you so much, Kylie. That was really helpful. And I love the way that you break it down in a data-driven way of how you nurture these relationships. It's really helpful. So I promised a special announcement, but I also want to say we have tons of questions already, which I love, and we will definitely take the time to answer all those questions. So if you want, I'm gonna take over the screen here for a second. I look a little choppy. Can you guys hear me okay?
We're good. Yep, I've just stopped my screen.
Okay, so let's see here. Make sure I bring up, I'm actually gonna bring up the entire desktop, which is gonna look messy for a second, but that's because I have so much to share with you guys. So I want to, first of all, talk to you about the big announcement. And this is the big announcement. So what we have done here is in the acquisition of HomePrezo and Real Content, Active Pipe has been working so hard. Kylie, how hard have you been working?
Yeah.
So hard. But now you don't have to bring in your own blogs. You don't have to spend your time writing content. You don't have to be an expert on 50,000 different topics. You get to use Kylie's expertise. And we're going to have integration with content right into your Active Pipe account. So for those of you with Active Pipe accounts, check in with your customer service rep or with your marketing director, whoever handles your real estate, your Active Pipe account at your office. And it's what's to me most exciting about it, and what's different than, you know, there's blogs available other places, is it's persona-based content marketing, which is what we really, you know, practice at Active Pipe, in sending that content that people really want and are looking for, based on if they're thinking about selling or if they're a first-time home buyer. Of course, there's also general content. I think this is one of your favorite blogs here, the Marie Kondo ones. You said that got a lot of hits. So I aspire to be Marie Kondo. I'm only Marie Kondo behind me on the Zoom call. It is not Marie Kondo in front of me on the Zoom call. So really exciting here, because think of all the time you save. There'll be hundreds of articles available right away, plus dozens added monthly. One thing I hear from real estate agents is, I don't want to send out what other people are sending out. I understand that. We talked about that differentiator. And so this allows you to select from categories, not just the persona-based categories, but there's general categories and things like that. If you're not quite segmented to that point, it works for everybody. But it has that seamless integration. And when they click on the blog, they don't go out to Active Pipe's landing page. They land on their own agent branded landing page with their information. So it doesn't just make you an expert because you're providing the information, but here you are with your own landing page with content that has your name on it, and it just really positions you as a professional and as an expert. And then using that content to uncover your contacts' interests and what their intents are. So, you know, of course, you guys all have, you know, probably written blogs or emails or information. You know how much time that takes. So this lets you stay busy with writing contracts and showing homes. So that's one thing I wanted to show you guys. And I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll take a second to sort of show you how that actually works. Let's see, is this the right one? I have a couple open. Oh, almost. Here we go. All right. Can you guys see this okay?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, so here we are. This is just inside our demo account in Active Pipe. So this is just the dashboard. This is more of what an admin would see, but I'm going to go ahead into the users here. Oh, sorry, I took us to the wrong page. 1 second. I'm in the big back end instead of the, here we go. So this is the user. I was on the right page to start with. Look at me, more prepared than I thought. And I'm just hopping into her send dashboard. So this will be available for all levels, send, auto, and enterprise. So just, you know, contact your representative to see how you can get this set up. And I'm just going to jump into an email, and we'll just look at the weekly listing email because it's already set up. So this is something you might be sending right now, a beautiful property, you know, some different properties for sale, maybe a video, you know, Active Pipe does all this. And in the past, and we still will be able to do this, you can put in blogs and from your own blog. If you're already a prolific writer, then great, you know, put in your own content. But if you don't have time for that, I'm going to show you what it would look like to add one of the ones from real estate content. So over here on our panel bar, I'm going to go down to a smart feed, and I have a choice. I can do a feature article, I can do a block of articles, or I can do a list. We'll just drop in a feature article here. What's also really great is you just click in here, and here over here now we have this new button called add-ons, and you click real estate content. And I have to say, guys, you're seeing this, it's not even available yet. So all the pictures aren't in yet. This is really truly a sneak peek. We haven't even released the press release yet. And so these categories aren't quite finalized, but you'll definitely see these and more. And you can see some of the topics available. So renovating, some of the photos are here. So we'll pick a beautiful one. Let's see, love gardening. There you go. And then you can see it truncates the article and it has the photo in it. And if you have a different photo you want to choose, you can come in here and upload your own photo if you prefer. If you prefer to change the name of the article, you can certainly come in here and say, you know, Gabrielle's Beautiful Garden. No, don't say that. And then when you click off to read the article, it's going to open it up in your own landing page. So I have some examples of that here, and I was just going to bring up, we talked about the Marie Kondo one. This is a beautiful example of where you have your agent photo, your call out information, and the full blog. So they're going to land on an actual landing page that's totally branded to you. So that's our big announcement. I'm pretty excited that we have gone into the content business, and I'm really excited to go into it with you, Kylie.
Thanks so much, Gab. It looks great. It looks like some of those articles that have coming through, I know we're still in testing, so I'm going to check. Some of them look like they're Australian ones. I'm going to make sure that doesn't come through.
Yeah, well, and that's the testing account, so it you know, it might be a little, still a little wonky. So I'll stop the share here. Let's jump in. Go ahead. Sorry, Kylie?
We've got some great questions coming through. If anyone wants to pop them into the chat or in the questions. I am going to ask you one because I'm not 100% sure about the answer to this one, Gab, because I haven't been inside ActivePipe enough. But is there a way, Catherine Uhlenbrock is asking, sorry, Christine Uhlenbrock is early. Is there a way to see one person's number of times they've opened every email that you've ever sent?
Yeah.
Not one campaign at a time, but a review of all time views on email.
Yeah, I'm actually going to share my screen again really quickly so that you guys can see. Is that coming up okay? Mm-hmm. So I just have gone into contacts here, and I'm clicking the contact's name. And so I can see how many times they opened it, how many interactions they had with it across the time. I can even get open rate per person, their contact score, how many times I've actually emailed them, when I added them, what their interaction rate is. You can also see what their most engaged property is. So if you're sending out weekly emails with property listings, you can see which ones they're engaging with. So absolutely, yes.
And that's a really powerful insight, isn't it? Because if you then went to talk to that person, you would have some insights into what's turning them on before you make the call, and you'd know how to sort of then handle that call.
Exactly. It certainly helps get the conversation going when you can ask questions that are related to things that you think they might really need to know. And I really love, you know, we recently rolled out, and I'm not sure everyone on this call knows, smart matches, because when you're making those phone calls, you know, these most engaged properties are properties they've clicked on and seen. But in Smart Match, what's neat about this is you see ones with numbers on them tells you how many times they've clicked those properties. But Smart Matches that have no numbers on them, these are ones that ActivePipe is going in using the algorithm to predict properties that fit the preferences based on their previous interactions, their surveys, their buyer preferences. And you can actually call and say, you know, I saw that property you clicked sold, but I didn't know if you knew this one was available. So that really, I think, can help position you as helpful and as an expert as well.
And we've got another question from Cindy Larson, who has asked why open rate on emails is not great. So I think there's a million, there's a lot of answers to that, Cindy, but you need to, if you're not getting great open rates on your emails, you need to look at what the tone of them is and how they're coming across. So I'd be looking at tweaking my subject line. I'd be looking at and making sure that that offers real value to the person who is receiving it in their inbox. If your open rate isn't great, that would indicate that people are not necessarily feeling at the moment that you're either delivering on the promise of the email that when it appeared in their box, or you're being too salesy too early on in the relationship, and so they're kind of just being a little bit put off and so not engaging around it.
Right, I would agree. I think one, it's really important to know what subject lines to use. You never want to be It shouldn't be a trick. It shouldn't be clickbait, but it should also be a promise of information that they are curious about and want to hear. So that's one way to get things open. But once people open one email, how do you get them to keep opening your emails? I think that has, there's a heavy lift to that. And I think that's why Active Pipe exists, right? And the heavy lift being you need to have personalized content for the people that you're sending to. So like if you send me an email of a bunch of $2 million houses, that is just not in my price range, I'm afraid. And while they might be pretty to look at, it's just not really what I'm going to keep looking at. But if you send me content on what I can do to remodel my home in order to get the most resale value for it, I'm going to open that, because that is the space that I'm in right now, knowing that I'm going to sell in a few years. But right now, just looking at like, how can I make my own life better? That is the kind of content I'm going to open. So learning those things about your 400 average contacts, that's the heavy lift, right? So, you do that with when you're making your phone calls, making sure you're updating their buyer preferences. When you're sending content using things like Smart Match, they might not have shared with you what their buyer preferences are, but Smart Match will know based on what they've interacted with. So you can do it without even getting the answer from them. Another thing is using real estate content. And I showed you where you can put the whole list of blogs in. You can have a blog about investments. Maybe people are looking at, how am I going to invest my money right now? Or maybe people are looking at, like I said, about remodeling, or maybe they, have a son or daughter who's looking at buying for the first time. So you put that first time buyer blog in there. If you have a list of 4 very different intents and they click on one, well, that certainly helps you know what the next phone conversation should be about, but it also makes them more likely to open your emails because you're delivering content they don't have to go searching for everywhere. I do know MailChimp has some statistics out there for real estate that the average open for real estate content is right around 19%. And for Active Pipe, the latest number I saw was 31% open rate. So, which is a lot higher. So I do think that the proof is in the pudding, right? If you do personalize that content, which is very hard to do at scale, but if you do personalize that content at scale, then you're going to get your open rates up.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you were doing if you wanted to kick off, because it's often hard to know, well, how do we even get started in this? So if you were doing a general email once a month, and that general email featured 4 articles in it that were focused on different kind of types. So a seller article, a buyer article, an investor article, or, and then maybe something general. Whatever people click on in that is, you're giving people, you're starting to capture 4 different types of intent from the one email based on who's inside your database. So you're going to start to understand the intent of people from kind of day one. And if you ran that over a couple of months, you'd start to really build up a picture, and you'd see then, well, who am I needing to be sending stuff that's more sales focused to? Who am I needing to be sending stuff that's more buyer focused to?
Yeah, and I also think it's very valid when people unsubscribe to give them a call and say, I noticed you unsubscribed. It's never, my intent to harass you with information. I just wanted to give you a call and check in and make sure that you're keeping that relationship personal. That's a real signal. I mean, I think an unsubscribe is actually a great reason to call someone. Sometimes I think you feel the other way. They're not interested in me. No, I think that's them saying, I want to keep this relationship personal. And like I said, people use their friends who they trust as real estate agents. So they're saying, I want to have a personal relationship.
So Gab, we're getting a few questions around login information, or like what comes next. What's the plans in the US for the rollout?
Okay, so as you saw by the photos, it's not 100% ready. It is development, and so we had a certain date, and we're still pushing for that date. So we hope to get there. But I want to under promise and over deliver. So I will say it'll be out very soon. And we have all of your emails from this registration. So we'll send out exact details on how you can find out more about it and when it's ready. So I promise to send you guys all that information. And for login information, let's see, where would we get our login information for this? Do we just create an account from Brittany? I'm assuming that Brittany, you are already an Active Pipe user. So in that case, you would go to your Active Pipe account, and there's a forget login, or you can always email support@activepipe.com, and they can also help you get access. And there's a great knowledge base as well, if you're in the app, that you can go to that'll help you with things. But if you can't log in, then that might not be as helpful. Can this content also be posted to a blog in addition to emails? So a couple things. One is you could post it to a blog. I would say, depending on what your bandwidth is, it may not be as important that you post it to a blog, because for blogs and SEO, if you're really looking at building out your website, then you want to have unique content in there. And I'm not saying that you can't put this in a blog, because by all means you can. If it's your content, you can do what you want with it. But I would say the greater value for your time is to take advantage of the fact that it already lands on a branded landing page for you. But absolutely, if you want to do that, you certainly can. But the beauty is you don't have to. I think that's, the time saver there.
Pre-created.
Let's see, I do not recall how I got to this webinar. Is this a paid offering for me from BHS as part of our current social media? For BHHS, they have a partnership with Active Pipe, and in the back end of yours, I believe it's Sage, right, for you guys? There's an Active Pipe login there that you can look at, but you can also just talk to your marketing manager or your office manager, and they can help you out there. There's some questions about cost that'll all be in the email coming up. And let's see. No, this isn't going to replace anything for anyone. This is just an additional offering. When we make changes to content to further customize it and give it our own voice, and may we use the content in other channels like posting on social media. So as far as making changes to the content, I think that's a future iteration. Is that correct, Kylie? At this time, it's not, but that's something that you've done in the past with your content, and that's something that...
Yeah, so I think the beauty of it inside Active Pipe is that it's drag and drop. In Australia, we do have the ability to edit it slightly, but at the moment, with the drag and drop, it comes through as it comes through. But we will be looking at how you can add your own voice down the track.
Exactly. And then, can you post it on social media? Yes, you can. So once you pick a blog, there's a certain URL that's related to it, and you can use that link to absolutely post that, and it'll be your branded landing page right on your social media. So did we get all the questions here? There's so many, you guys. I love this. Usually I'm like crickets when I ask for questions. And Brittany, the other question you had about how to go going over Active Pipe, I would really suggest there's a quick start webinar, and I'll make sure that I include a link to that when I send it out with this. If anybody is a current Active Pipe user and is inspired to really dig in and just needs a few reminders, I think the quick start is a great way to just refresh your mind, or even just get started if you haven't had a chance yet. So those are the Q&As. I did see a couple in the chat here, so if you guys will bear with me, I want to make sure that we
are sending out a copy of this webinar and a copy of the deck too, aren't we, to anyone who's attended to that?
Exactly, the recording and the deck. And let's see, is there a way to see, oh, we did answer that one. Oh, we did answer them all. Are there any other questions, you guys? We've went right to the hour. No, I think we finally answered them all. Kylie, first of all, welcome. I know it's been 2 months, but I cannot say how much it means, like having another writer, having another woman, having someone with your expertise at Active Pipe. We are so lucky to have you, and I've enjoyed working with you so much. You really are an amazing asset. And getting up at 3 in the morning for us, it's now 4. I hope you get to take a nap before you have to start your day.
Absolutely. I'm going to take my makeup off before I go back to bed. I may be wearing my PJs under the table.
Perfect. I might be too, but it's 12 o'clock here. All right. All right. So guys, look out for the, oh, lots of thank yous coming in. Yes. Thank you, Kylie. Look for the emails coming out that will announce more information about real estate content, and also with the recording and with the deck attached. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Gabby. It's been wonderful. Speak to you soon, guys.
Really fun.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.